last week, I noticed that Ken Ham posted in his own name a blog article on answersingenesis.com or .org, I suppose. That normally wouldn't catch my eye, but it has been a while since I've seen Ken write an article himself, or at least lend his name to an article. And I realized it's been all year since I've seen Ken on Answers News. He hasn't streamed on Answers News at all in 2022, which is partially why you haven't seen Ham and Egg News on my channel, because I prefer to wait to when Ken is on. And then I look back, and basically all he's done is occasional blips into the office to promote some job listings and to promote their curriculum sales. Basically, he's done very short streams as a salesman, but nothing since. But there's also been no call that Ken is sick. I mean, thank goodness. I mean, right? We all, in this pandemic, I think our minds always jump to a specific type of illness that we worry that people may or may not have, that we actually worry they don't have. Don't really wish that on anyone. But that's not it. But I saw this article, Protecting Against Doctrinal Drift. Now, when Ken says doctrinal, he doesn't mean, of course, the number of people who have PhDs or what they're doing in his office. He is concerned about the legacy of his Answers in Genesis. The Ministry of Answers in Genesis, the Creation Museum, and the Ark Encounter need protecting. Now, perhaps you're like me, and your mind goes immediately to the Ravi Zacharias situation. For those who don't know, Ravi Zacharias built a giant RZIM ministry where he was the central figure. It was worldwide. It was worth millions. And Ravi was later, well, after he passed, a lot of the allegations about Ravi's misconduct turned out to be true under investigation. And that has prompted, and I think rightfully so and gratefully so, a lot of ministries to set up accountability steps so that even if they have a charismatic leader, that charismatic leader isn't off, alone on trips, or put in compromising situations, or perhaps have access to funds. Like, just people are putting in finally some common sense steps to say, you know what, these leaders of our organization need to have at least some accountability. As you can imagine, if you're at all familiar with Ken Ham is not the type who voluntarily puts in layers of accountability for himself, shall we say. So that wasn't what was going on here. Pardon me as I scroll. So this article is about how Ken is setting up rules within the organization to make sure that everyone who does everything, everyone who does everything falls within very, very strict guidelines of what is acceptable at Answers in Genesis. Reading from the article, a few years ago, I considered the future for AIG and recognized we are now getting closer to the next generation leading this ministry in all its various components. That should read, I'm getting ready to retire, and I'm worried about the legacy of this organization. Now, later on in the article, I'm not sure how deep I'll get into it, I think there's probably also I need to make sure that I'm financially looked after in my retirement, but we'll get to that. So, what steps is our Answers in Genesis taking now to ensure that in a hamless era, that everything that Answers in Genesis puts out is of proper doctrine? First of all, their statement of faith. You've heard me talk before about their statement of faith. It's something that every employee has to sign, from the top vice president of the company to the PhDs who work there, all the way down to the people who scrub the toilets. They all have to sign a statement of faith saying that they believe the Bible in the same way Ken believes in the Bible. But they've added a new step. Each year, we require the staff to re-sign this document to ensure they haven't strayed from it in any way. So now, not only to keep your job do you have to believe in the Bible the way Ken does, You have to you have to reaffirm that every year, lest you get your own ideas in your head. That, of course, makes sense. They've added an editorial review board. Actually, it looks like it's been in place a few years, but we're hearing of it. And that editorial review board is being headed up by Dr. Georgia Purdom, who people who are familiar with my channel will know the name Georgia Purdom. Now, what's happening there? Just I'm not going to read it all. Every single piece of content, be it a social media post or any of the video. So I've actually noticed that Answers News now no longer streams; they now premiere. So they record that broadcast is looked at by the Georgia Purdom Committee, and then they stream it. So they don't go live anymore at all, unless it's Ken. When it's Ken, they're allowed to go live. The AIG Oversight Council is now being chaired by Bodie Hodge, who is Ken's son-in-law. Who basically Bodie's job is to make sure that the ministry stays on the track of biblical authority and never allows anyone to think that anything in Genesis is figurative. That's basically Bodie's new job. Well done. The Answers Research Journal Editorial Review Committee. I hope Shannon's still in the chat for this one. He loves the Answers Research Journal. That's their whole. They have an artifice of a peer-reviewed journal when the peer review is literally people who work at Answers in Genesis, and the scientists are allowed to select their own people. So it's your buddy from the cubicle down the hall is peer reviewing you, who probably hasn't studied in the same field because they have no overlap in their expertise of their scientists. But that said, they've also set up, Andrew Snelling has set up a new system of review to make sure that everything's Answers in Genesis enough. And then finally, they're pitching that this is all not to protect Ken and not to protect the ministry, but it's to protect the people who donate. So this should give you all the more confidence to continue donating well into the future. And as always with Answers in Genesis, they have systems set up for you to give long term, and also for you to give as part of your will, which is a whole show I should do separately. But anyway, my prediction, my call, I think what's happening here is that Ken Ham is retiring soon. He won't go away completely because I think he's the fundraising face of the company. But I'm sadly predicting that we are no longer going to see Ken doing the Answers News, doing some of the silliness that we used to see. I think he's going to retire and basically show up wherever the purse strings are. So what do you think about Ken Ham, the face of the company, possibly stepping back, possibly retiring? You think, is that good? Is that bad? Is Answers in Genesis, can it thrive without someone like Ken at the helm? Can Bodie and Georgia cut it? Let me know what you think in the comments.